So today we get to see Melanie Phillips lay down the law on a bit of the conflict in Israel. She's a British public commentator, and it's my first time listening to her. I really like her conviction. She really, again, lays down the law in some issues in the way we engage with the Palestinian narrative. In a certain sense, she says we've already bought into their lies, which is, not faring so well for us. Let's take a look.
People in the West, in Britain, believe, insofar as they think about Israel at all, and a very large number don't think about Israel at all, but insofar as they think about it and they kind of take a side, the elites, they will take the Palestinian side because they believe in the lie that's been told for the last half century that the indigenous people of the land of Israel were the Palestinian Muslims. Along came the Jews after the Holocaust. Because of sympathy for their plight, the Western world plonked them down in Palestine, where they drove out the indigenous population, and those Muslims who were left, those Palestinians who were left, they have oppressed ever since. That's basically what people believe. And they believe that because they don't know history of Israel, they know none of the history of the Jewish people, none of the history of the Middle East. And because they're told this all the time by their mainly left-wing university teachers and so on, they have no idea that the Jews are the only people for whom the land of Israel was ever their national kingdom, centuries before Islam was even created. They have absolutely no idea at all. So there's ignorance and ideology, because they think that the Palestinians are like other developing world peoples, poor and oppressed because they've got brown skins. They think Israel is a white-skinned population and is therefore, it must be white because it's Western and it's an adjunct of America. If you tell them that the majority of Israelis are brown or black-skinned,
like me, well, I'm not black skin, but
they can't process this.
Let's not forget that, again, I say this so many times, the Muslims actually kicked out a lot of the Sephardic Jews in the Muslim lands after the creation of the state of Israel. That even though they had nothing to do politically with the state, they sort of got them to pack their bags and send them packing and go to Israel with nothing but the shirt on their back. So, a lot of this, funny enough, has been caused by Muslims who kicked out the Jews, stole their land, like pillaged all their belongings, and just send them over to Israel.
So there's all of that. But I think that, Israel itself has a lot to answer for in this misapprehension. Mm-hmm. The Jewish communities of the diaspora have a lot to answer for, because nobody has actually told the truth about this. In the Jewish communities of the diaspora, particularly in Britain, which is what I know about, I would say the majority believe in a two-state solution. Why do they believe that? Because they believe basically that this is a fight over land, because this is how it's been projected for a century, that you have a piece of land, you have two peoples, the Jews, the Palestinians, each of which has a claim to the land. We in the West can't arbitrate over that claim, but clearly if you have a piece of land being fought over by two contesting parties, what you do is you negotiate, you bang heads together, you make them separate the land, you make them divide the land between them. End of problem. That's the two-state solution. One lot has that, the other lot has that. Very neat. The problem is that the problem to which this is the solution is not identified correctly. It is not a problem over land. It is not a problem over the division of land. If it was a problem over the division of land, it would have been solved in the 1930s when the Palestinian Arabs were offered part of the Holy Land as a state of their own, and they refused and went to war instead to prevent the Jews from having a homeland in any part of that land. That has continued ever since. The Palestinian cause is one of exterminating the state of Israel and removing Israel as a Jewish homeland altogether. And not only is Palestinianism aimed at removing and destroying Israel and removing the Jewish homeland, it's also based on the big lie which rewrites the Jews out of their own history in the land. It pretends that the indigenous people of the land were the Muslims, the Palestinians, and that the Jews are interlopers, where in fact the reverse is true. The indigenous people of the land are the Jews, and the Palestinians do not exist as a people. They say it themselves. They've said it themselves over and over again. We invented it. We invented it in order to twist the minds of the West and in order to present ourselves as having a claim to the land. So this is a lie from start to finish, a big lie. Now, bad enough that the universities have been pumping this out for 4 or 5 decades, bad enough that they have been backed by a very sophisticated, hugely financed, very intelligently calibrated campaign by the Palestinian by Palestinian supporters, by Palestinian Arabs and their supporters in the world to fry the minds of the West. Bad enough that's all happened, but it's happened in the way that it has no argument is permitted against this myth, this lie, because of the silence of the Jewish people themselves, the silence of Israel, the silence of the Jewish diaspora. They may inveigh against, as they do, the excesses of Palestinian rejectionism. They may say, at most, Israel will say, they don't want to state of their own, they want to destroy us. Absolutely correct. But what Israel doesn't say, and what the Jewish community doesn't say, is that this is not a fight over land. This is an Islamic-inspired holy war against the Jewish homeland on the basis that the Jews cannot be allowed to live in their own homeland and rule themselves. It's against Islam. And that's what it actually is. And Israel doesn't say it. And Israel doesn't say the Palestinians are not actually Palestinians, that Palestinianism is a thing that was invented in order to create a myth, but that actually, if you look at what the Palestinians so-called are saying, they're not talking about a two-state solution. They're not even talking about Israel. They're talking about eradicating Jews. Here are the videos. They're all on Memory, the wonderful website that translates all these videos. They're all there. Israel virtually never uses these things. It never says to the West, your two-state solution is the answer to a problem you have yourselves misidentified, and that you are the reason this is continuing. Your support for this false cause is the reason that it continues. Nobody says that from Israel, and nobody in the Jewish community says that in Britain. Nobody. Nobody says the whole thing is based on a lie. Palestinianism is rubbish. There is no such thing as the Palestinian people. This is a lie invented to destroy us in Israel as a physical country and to remove us as Jews from our own history. It is the worst and most savage kind of cultural appropriation conceivable. That's what's going on, and it's fried all your minds. They're not saying that. So how can anyone know this? And so when you ask, how can we solve this problem of the West saying, well, the Hamas are bad, but Palestinians are good? The way through that is to say individual Palestinians may be fine. Some of them undoubtedly just want a happy life. They are the victims of their own people. These are the ways in which they are the victims of their own people. But they've been told a lie. You're being told a lie. The lie is that the Palestinian cause is a just cause. It is an evil cause. This is why it's evil. And it is evil because it not only wants to destroy Israel, the only country in the world which is targeted for annihilation, it wants to remove the Jews from their own history. And it's evil, and you should be opposing this at source. You should, the West, not be funding these people. You should not be funding the Palestinian Authority. You should be treating them as political, diplomatic, and social pariahs. Pariahs. Instead, you're treating them as statesmen in waiting. You're treating Israel as the rogue element in this because it dares not to want to be annihilated. That's what Israel should be saying. It doesn't say any of this. It could be said, it should be said, and it's not a question of, how can you show people that there is no distinction between Hamas and other Palestinians. It's how do you show people that the Palestinian cause itself is based on a lie and is the source of intellectual and moral corruption in the West, which has knocked the West, in my view, completely off its moral compass. I think the importance of the Palestinian cause to the moral, intellectual, and cultural disintegration of the West, which is underway, cannot be overestimated, because it is the quintessential example of how you no longer, as a Western society, you are no longer able to distinguish between truth and lies, victim and victimizer, and as a result, you take the side of the aggressor over the victim, and you punish the victim by upholding the lies. And this has, I think, cut a swathe through Western society and Western culture far beyond the issue of Israel and the Middle East. I think it's acted as a kind of moral cancer. Palestinianism is a moral cancer in the West, which has corrupted its intellectual elites, fried the collective brain, and destroyed the West's ability to distinguish truth from lies, and the ability, therefore, to defend its own way of life.
Hey, there you have it. Someone hire this lady for the PR, the battle that Israel is unfortunately really losing lately. So just a few takeaway points I got from this is Palestinians aren't really interested in a Palestinian state. They want Israel gone. That's their main goal. It's always been their goal, as you can recognize from their chants from the river to the sea. Number two is that we give into their narrative that they just want peace and that we're the ones denying them peace. Again, we've tried so many times. We've given them so many offers that clearly hasn't panned out. And the third thing that we have to really voice ourselves about is that Jewish presence in our ancient homeland is a big problem for Islam. And I think this is the root of a lot of this issue, is that this Jewish people being in their land shows that we're not rejected by God as Islam claims. And this is, in fact, a religious war, as Melanie mentioned. It's not just a squabble over land that's causing them to be upset. This is something that they really just deep down can't live with, the fact that the God's chosen people, as is written in the Bible, are still hanging around while they're, not so succeeding so much against us. So again, people need to acknowledge the terrible, the fact that we've been kicked out of all these countries. They're the ones who have been aggressors against us throughout all these decades that this conflict has been going on. There's nothing to talk about. This is the reality. So yeah, definitely just time to flip the script on all these anti-Israel protesters. They are the oppressors. They are the tyrants, and we're not giving in inch to their demands. And we really have to speak up on these points and show them that this intifada that they're fighting against us won't stop until we put an end to it. So you're here with Jewish Uncensored. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. You can also consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. Am Yisrael Chai.